Hey, there you are. Thanks for stopping back in. Episode 5 of Secret Guitar Club. Today I interview Bryant Haynie of Richmond, Virginia. Bryant is building absolutely gorgeous guitars in the laminate hippie sandwich style. You'll recognize this style of guitar if you're a fan of Jerry Garcia, the Grateful Dead. Really interesting pieces. I enjoyed talking with Bryant today about his process, about how he started, about building the guitars and a little bit of woodworking. Really fascinating stuff. I hope you enjoy. Please like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon. Hey, I'm here with Bryant Haynie of RVA Guitars. Bryant, thanks for joining the channel here. I appreciate you stopping by.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So tell me, what came first for you, playing guitar or building guitars? I assume playing, right?
Yeah, definitely. I've been playing most of my life. My family always had guitars around when I was a kid, and both of my parents played a little, and just kind of picked it up, and ended up ultimately going to college and majoring in jazz studies, and then after that, music education. So,
Oh,
uh,
cool. So
I,
you've always
I
been involved.
yeah, I studied
Always.
it pretty thoroughly for a while, and I've been playing in bands and done tons of gigs and stuff for years and years before I ever started building them, but. Woodworking, I'd been around also. My grandfather was a boat builder, and my dad was always a carpenter. And I've been around it my whole life. And I actually worked as a finished carpenter for a bunch of years. And I've always been kind of into the idea of guitar building. And I guess I had a custom guitar done by a guy named Tony Huvard who used to work around this area. And I went and visited his shop a couple of times in that process, and that was kind of what planted the bug, I guess, in wanting to do it. But I eventually took the plunge and just started building them. But
So when was that? When did you start building?
um, I repaired and like flipped guitars for a bunch of years, like starting in like the late '90s, and I didn't really build my first one from scratch until I guess 2020 was the first one
Oh, okay,
that was
cool.
complete from scratch. I'd made a couple of banjos, like old mountain style banjos before that, like 10 years before that, I guess, but not,
Yep.
I didn't put a whole lot of time into it. But during COVID, I had a lot more time, and, I was like, well, I got to do something. I've always wanted to do this. When that first stimulus check came out, I went and spent all of it on tools and just started building guitars. So
I
never
guess
looked
that's the
back.
silver lining to the whole pandemic thing is all the creative endeavors that people got into. I got into a creative endeavor myself, and that's
Yeah.
really cool to hear that you spent your time being
But all the time
creative.
I used to spend in bars playing music and practicing and just out goofing around, I was like, well, all this free time while I'm doing is working. I might as well do this. So,
Cool, cool.
yep.
So, your guitars are beautiful. The guitars that you
Thanks.
make, very unique style. Talk a little bit about how you got into that laminated hippie sandwich style. I assume you're a fan of the Grateful Dead. I mean, I immediately think of Jerry's guitars when I see your guitars. So, tell me a little bit about that.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely a deadhead and have been. I've seen Jerry play lots of times, and that's the style of guitars. I mean, that's ultimately what led me to want to make my own guitars, was wanting to have something like the Doug Irwin stuff, which is completely unattainable for anyone who's not wealthy to get the real thing, So
Yeah, yeah,
they're
that's
pretty
crazy.
steep. But so I was like, well, eventually I'll just maybe get good enough to make one of those myself. So that's kind of what that was part of the motivation, was to make that style of guitars I've always been into. And just I've always liked that, the multi laminate look, all the different woods. Like the first real tool I bought was a drum sander when I
Hmm.
started actually buying, professional tools to do this with. I was like, okay, that, because I knew right from the start that I wanted to do a lot of making veneers and stuff. So,
Do you have any favorite woods, or are there any woods that are best for that kind of style?
um, I give a little bit of thought to what's going to glue together. Well, like
Mhm.
some of the more oily woods, the rosewoods and stuff, are problematic using, using like tight bond and different wood glues, and I have to give some thought to that. make sure that I'm not gluing something that's going to move a lot to something that's not going to move at all, because that's going to cause some issues down the line. But generally, the traditional guitar building woods, maple and mahogany and rosewood,
Yeah.
are what I work with. I do a lot of stuff with Purple Heart, and
Mm-hmm.
I try to use all of the wood that I can local to
Mm-hmm.
here that I can get, like all of my maple and use some walnut is all coming from the East Coast, from around this area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. No, they're gorgeous. Now, when you're clamping, a little bit of on the woodworking side, are you using like just a big clamp to get them all together, or do you have a vacuum bag? How do you
So
laminate
far
them?
I've just been using big clamping calls and a lot of clamps, but
Yeah.
I'm currently deciding if I want to build a big hydraulic press table
Hmm.
clamp to clamp bodies together with, or get a vacuum setup. I'm leaning towards the vacuum setup. It's just a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
Do it that way, but
Um,
it'd be useful for a lot of other things I do. I like to make drop top strats with a bent top, and it's so much easier to do that
I
with a
saw that post that you
vacuum
had
bag.
yesterday where you're bending the pick guard on that strap body. Um, that's gorgeous, by the way.
Here,
All the
well,
all the
here it is. I'll show
curve
you.
on that strap body.
This guy, yeah,
Yeah.
I've got
Yeah,
it
that
kind
is
of
so nice.
experimentally screwed on there. You can kind of see that it's
Yeah.
like when I carved the top, I tried to do it with a mind to this flat plastic bending over it.
Hmm.
And there's a couple spots where it's standing up, but I'm going to try to remove a little bit more wood and maybe heat the guard and slump it a little to be able to put it in without adding any more screw holes. But the gentleman I'm building it for basically wanted a strat that was like a strat and a 335 crammed together. So it's built just like a ES 335. It's got a center block in the middle and it's
Hmm.
hollow, other than that. And it's wired, like a strat though with a pick guard. So, and
Yeah.
it's carved on the back as well
Gorgeous.
as I don't have the carve quite there on the back, but it's getting close.
Yeah. Is that oak?
Oh no, it's the core is roasted alder. The top and the back are roasted flame maple, and the
Okay.
whole thing
Yeah.
is getting a Olympic white pearl finish over it. And then he
Nice.
wants to take some of that, like do a relic thing, and take some of that off so you can see the curly maple through it, which will be a first for me doing that. So
That's very
there's a
cool. It's
lot of
gonna be
firsts on
beautiful.
this guitar. Nothing's ever existed quite like that thing.
I love the hollow body strat look. Like just the F hole on that strap body just looks really sharp.
And it's the
Um,
F hole that's traditional on the Fender, the thin line telly. That's the
yep.
telly F hole. So yeah.
Yep. What do you expect that to come in weight wise at?
It's pretty. It should weigh right around what a normal Strat weighs. This body
Mhm.
is thing I can't remember. I've got a scale sitting right here though. I can tell you. Like as it sits right there, it's just barely over 4 pounds.
Oh, great. That's awesome.
So it's pretty typical. It's pretty light. It's hollowed out a lot. It's only the sides of it are only about just under half an inch all the way
Hmm.
around, and the rest of it. And this top is it's fairly thick in the center, but on the edges, it's taken all the way down to where it's only an eighth of an inch or so.
Yeah, I,
Yeah,
I really love the contours on that. That's a beautiful shape there.
yeah, it should look pretty cool. But at first glance, it'll just look like a Strat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's going to have
Um,
all kind of crazy wiring and knobs and extra switches and stuff on it, so it'll look a little weird. But
Now, are you doing your bodies by hand with a hand router?
yeah,
So
yeah,
you shape them
I
out.
have a little small CNC machine that's this big, literally, that I use for. It's got an interchangeable head for a router motor or a laser cutter, and I
Hmm.
mostly use the laser on it just for.
Cool.
I like to do a lot of wood marquetry, like inlay stuff on
Yeah.
headstocks, and I
Yes.
use that to cut out the pieces for that.
Very cool. Very
But
cool.
everything else, I do the old school way with routers and hand tools, and I mean, I do have a like a lot of the rough carving on carved stuff. I use a angle grinder with a carving wheel on it, which
Sure.
is it's kind of frightening, but it's very effective and it cuts wood like butter. So
Yeah.
you
No,
can very
definitely.
quickly and easily screw something up with it. But
Yeah.
if you
Absolutely.
have some finesse with it, it makes for a great tool. But
Um, so and then you'll make a neck for that, obviously, and you make all your own necks, I think, right?
I do this particular one. I did not make the neck for. The guy that I'm making this for has very specific needs that he wants for it, and he got a neck made for it by Mighty Might, and
Hmm.
I fit it to this, made the guitar to fit that neck, and now he has sent that neck off, and that's made of roasted maple also, and he sent that off to someone else who's scalloping the entire thing,
Oh wow!
the
So
whole
it'll be
fretboard. So yeah,
cool.
this kid is a rocker. He's like he's into the way, he's like super strat kind of guy. He just wants this kind of style. But he had like this
Yeah,
is entirely his design.
cool.
He came to me. He said, "I want this specifically." He had already actually put a deposit down with another luthier who dragged his heels for 2 years and never started on it and just lost his money. So he was kind of like frightened about it. But
Well, you're like an artist being commissioned, right? And sometimes
yeah,
it's hard to have what your customers has in mind. It's hard for you to completely understand what he's thinking of, and so that's difficult to do. I know. Um,
that's the biggest part challenge with doing commissions for me is the initial communicating and coming to an agreement about exactly what it is. Like
yeah,
if I know exactly if I can understand exactly what it is that you want, I can do it. Like this is
yeah,
a really involved complex project, but he knew exactly to every little detail exactly how he wanted every part of it. So I was like, okay, no problem. I just need to make sure I do all this stuff and
yeah,
in the right order and everything. But sometimes I'll get people to approach me about commissions and they will have literally no idea what they want, just or
yeah,
like the most vague understanding of what it is they're after, and that can be more of a challenge because there's more of a risk
yeah,
for them not getting what they want because it wasn't communicated. So
yeah. Exactly.
yeah,
Oh, that's interesting. Back to when you first started, I think of guitar building as almost like two parts: the body and the neck.
mm-hmm.
Did you build bodies first and buy some pre-made necks, or did you start right away with building your necks?
No, I did not follow the normal advice of starting simply and working up. My first guitar I ever made was a carved top and back hollow body Telecaster that I made every part of and
Wow.
made the neck, like the very first one. And
Yeah.
this is the first guitar I've ever made that I didn't make the neck for.
Interesting. That's cool.
So,
Yeah, I imagine the necks are tough. Getting the radius correct, and I imagine that looks difficult to me.
well, I do it with the old school way with a radius block. It's it's
Okay.
it's not that complicated. It's just a wooden block with whatever radius you want on it, and you glue sandpaper on there. And now there are a lot more complicated ways. People build router jigs and stuff to make it easier, but 45
Yeah,
minutes with that, I can get it there. You just have to
that's
be
so
careful
cool.
not to get off. It takes a little bit of a learning curve, but
Now, a lot of the
um,
guitars that you've made that I've seen online have the neck that goes all the way through the body, right?
I've done a few. Yes,
Is that traditional to that hippie sandwich style? Do those always go through the body? Or they're kind of like wings onto the neck?
sometimes like with the Jerry Garcia stuff, the his Wolf guitar was a through neck,
Hmm.
but all the Tiger and Rosebud were set neck, where the neck is just glued in.
Okay.
And like I've got one right here. This is a through neck that I'm just about done with. I'm waiting on the rest of the pickups and hardware to show up, but it's a SG bass and
Oh,
it's
cool.
fretless. It's a short scale bass, and like on this one, you can see the neck.
Yeah.
It's maybe easier to see on the back.
Yep. Yep. That's
I just need
beautiful.
to polish this guy up, and it's dusty. There's some of the wood
Hmm.
laser inlay I was talking about there. Dude, it's a Raven.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
But yeah, and that's like that, and then like and here's one that I'm doing. It's a barely faithful copy of Garcia's Rosebud guitar. And hang on one second, I need to plug this phone in. It does not have enough battery. The plug came out. All right, there we
There
go.
we go. You're back.
Sorry. And this
That's all
is
right.
that's another example of the wood inlay, and it's
Yeah.
got a mother of pearl traditional banjo inlays, and something I like to do on this also with I like to the switch plates on this guitar are inlaid pieces of orange
Oh, cool.
osage, and that stuff is as strong as some metal. But
Yeah.
this one is a set neck where the neck is glued in,
Okay.
and it's also like the multi laminate thing all over. It's got a back strap on the headstock with a Purple Heart veneer, and
Now
the
you
neck
put a
is
truss rod in those,
yeah, it's got a truss rod,
and
and
then is that adjusted at the headstock or down
yeah,
bottom?
there's a access
Oh, okay. I see
right
it.
there.
Yep, I see
Yep,
it.
and
Cool.
like I say, this whole body is laminated out of multiple pieces of curly maple and rosewood, and
I love
but
it.
it's also I make all of my guitars for the most part hollow inside. Like if you, I don't know if you can see up in here, but
Yeah.
this whole thing is the top and the back are only a 3/16 of an inch thick, and the rest of it. This guitar, when it's fully tricked out with three humbuckers and everything, it should weigh right around 8 pounds. Whereas
Sweet.
Garcia's one is 13 or 14 pounds. So it's
Yeah. Solid.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
So
gorgeous, Bryant. I love that guitar.
thank you.
When you're starting out on a new build and choosing woods, what's the balance between the aesthetics that you're going for with the woods versus the function and the overall tone that you want to get? How much, does that make sense? Like, how do you balance that out?
Like you have to, like when you're building necks, they have to be a certain amount rigid to withstand the force of the strings. You know,
Yeah.
you can't ignore that. And
Yep.
it's got to be a wood that's stiff enough and strong enough that a piece of it that's this big can hold, almost 200 pounds of pressure. So,
And are you looking for quarter sawn for your necks?
yeah, cortisone or vertically grained. And a lot of
Yep.
times, like most of my necks are multi laminate. So I'll actually buy flat sawn lumber and
Hmm.
resaw it and glue it together in a vertical grain pattern with opposing grains throughout the lamination. So everything
Gotcha.
stabilizes against itself.
Yep. That's very cool.
And those necks
And
are
then
when
how
you build
about
them that way, they're so stable. You could probably just leave the truss rod out without any problem. But
yeah.
it's
Yeah,
yeah.
no, exactly. All that lamination is it does the job. Are you, no, kind of a technical question? Are you using Type Bond 3 on all that stuff when you're gluing it
Type
together?
bond one only.
Oh,
Type bond
really?
three is generally not a good idea for guitar building. Most luthiers use just the one because it's reversible. It
Okay,
heat and moisture. Even 20 years later, you can take it back apart if you ever have to do a repair or if something
interesting.
move, if you have to change something. Whereas the two and three are much more permanent, and they also don't dry as rigidly as the one, so they
Yeah.
don't transfer sound vibrations as well.
Oh,
So,
okay, cool.
but I use a variety of glues. I use Tight Bond one for that. I use a lot of Bob Smith Industries epoxies. He makes two or three different items that are very useful. Um, like if I'm gluing a neck into a guitar, like that rosebud guitar I showed you is all rosewood and Purple Heart and stuff that doesn't necessarily glue well. So I glued that in with Bob Smith epoxy.
Yep,
So
yep, that
that
makes
will never,
sense.
if that ever had to come apart, nope, it's not going to happen. But
Yeah,
it's solid enough that it should never have an issue.
yeah,
So,
yeah. No, it's really cool looking. And then talk to me about finishing. How are you finishing those?
um,
It's an art of
most of mine
itself.
have, I use a Z epoxy grain filler,
Hmm.
which is an epoxy, a two-part epoxy product. And I put that on, wipe all of it I can get off, and then sand it back so it's just in the grain. And I'll do a couple coats of that. And then I use Crystalac products mostly,
Hmm.
which is a water-based lacquer that's zero VOC. It's like completely safe to be around, and it doesn't, it's not toxic. And
Yeah,
I'll do some lacquer if a commission needs it, like this Strat is getting lacquer, and but generally I use the Crystalac stuff, and I use their sanding sealer and their Bright Tone clear coat. It's dries
yep.
really hard and buffs really well.
Do you have do you have a favorite part of building and a least favorite part of building a guitar?
My favorite part is probably carving in the curves, like on a top or carving necks. So I like doing that, the shaping part of it, using card scrapers and stuff.
Hmm.
It's hard on the hands, but I enjoy the zen of the process. Uh,
Yeah.
My least favorite part is selling them, probably. Like marketing and selling. That is by far the hardest part of doing this.
I can
Like
relate.
twice as hard as building them, selling them.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun making stuff. It's not as much fun selling stuff.
And the market is like I'm competing with companies in China that are building, using
Oh yeah,
giant CNC rooms that can just pump out. I mean, honestly, really good guitars. Like some of the
yeah,
stuff coming out of China and Korea and stuff now are better than what American guitars were 10, 15 years ago. So
indeed.
it's a
Yeah,
it's a tight market with a very niche, audience that's looking to spend the money on it. So it's kind of a challenge financially. No one will ever get
yeah.
rich doing this, I don't think.
Well, but you're making really unique guitars that not a lot of people are making. So hopefully, the people who are interested in a hippie sandwich style guitar, a laminated guitar, their options are pretty limited here in the United States, and
Oh, yeah.
you're one of them. So that's really a cool niche to be in.
And there's a huge market for it now. The popularity of Grateful Dead music is at an all time high as far
It
as like
is.
people covering it and people playing in bands. Like you can go to any small or mid sized city and there will be 5 or 6 Dead cover bands there working. Like
I can
which never
attest.
used to be that way. But now I mean I can go out and see live Dead music pretty much any night of the week here in Richmond.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing. I mean, I live up in Portland, Maine, and it's the same thing. I mean, I can think of a handful of tribute bands just here in Maine, and it is really interesting the way that their music continues to carry on, almost the same way that like classical music continues to carry on. Like people still play Bach and
Mm,
Mozart, and I think that people will always continue to play the Grateful Dead's music because
I
it
agree.
resonates with people. You
They
know?
keep reinterpreting it as classical music happens does as well. So
Yeah,
yeah, I think it's
yeah,
got legs. I think it's going to be around a long time.
it is. I hope so. And it deserves to be. Who else? What are your other musical influences?
I'm a big Frank Zappa fan.
Cool.
Um, I really have a wide range of musical taste. I like all kinds of stuff, but
Yeah.
I'm into like old country music a lot and bluegrass, and I like to play a lot of different stuff. Like I've had a band for years that does adult comedy that's called Dick Butkus and the Tight Ends, and all of our songs are about like sexual perversions and poop and random juvenile stupid humor. But like I like
And there's a market for that too.
and that comes from growing up listening to the Dr. Demento show. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
Yeah.
I was a regular listener, and it affected me on some level, I guess.
Oh, that's
But
too funny.
I like jazz a lot. Like
Hmm.
I've also built like a lot of guitars that I'm aiming for like a jazz kind of sound, like hollow body, arch top kind
Yep.
of stuff, and like I just recently finished the first one. I don't. It's gone. Someone bought it, but tribute to like the Languedoc, the Trey Anastasio guitar, and I
Yeah.
made one of those like the real way with the carved top and back, carved by hand, and bent sides and everything. And it turned out
Yeah.
really well. I'm about to start another one of those. I think so.
Those are
So,
beautiful. I have a couple more questions. I could probably talk to you all day. But when you were learning guitar building, talk to me about electronics and how you learned to wire these things up.
um, a lot of working on guitars. Like I say, for a
Oh
long
yeah.
time I had like
Hmm.
a reverb store, and I would go and search Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist and find, just every day I'd wake up and I'd look on there and see, okay, who posted a guitar last night for sale. And I had used to work for Guitar Center as a guitar department manager and did a lot of buying of guitars, so I had a good idea of how to figure out what they're worth and the value. So I'd watch and I'd see when I saw one that was like trashed and I knew I could get really cheap and fix up, I would, and I'd flip them and restore them and sell them for a good profit. And I did that for years. So I got, I saw a lot of different electronics and learned a lot about that. But building them, the biggest challenge has been doing the Garcia stuff. Like the electronics in those are complex as can be. There's a lot going on, but
Yeah.
fortunately, we have a few people in the community that are kind of historians Yeah, there's a guy, Waldo, Michael Wald. He has Waldotronics, and he has
Hmm.
been tirelessly researching all of the electronics that are in those guitars, and recreating the preamps and buffer circuits for them, and selling those to the public. So it's been pretty beneficial having that going on. So,
Yeah, yeah,
but
I can
learning about
imagine.
all that was kind of a challenge, but
Yeah,
I've gotten there.
it's very cool. So you do some like onboard preamps and those in the Jerry stuff,
Hmm.
Jerry guitars.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I did a last year. I built a Strat that was kind of a tribute to his alligator Strat.
I
It
saw
had
that. Yep.
an inlaid alligator, but it was kind of a super Strat vibe
Hmm.
instead of strictly like his. But that one I made the Stratoblaster circuit for that myself from a
Cool.
kit I got from General Guitar Gadgets. They have some great pedal kits, and I got the kit for the pedal and just fitted it to go inside of the guitar and added a battery and everything and a separate
Yeah.
knob for it for gain. So that turned out pretty well. But yeah.
What about amps? Do you have any favorite amps that your guitars sound best on?
Um, I'm kind of weird person to ask that because recently I decided that the new modeling technology has gotten good enough for me, and I got rid
Yeah.
of all of my amps, and my whole rig is a little pedal board like this big and a powered speaker. and,
Yeah.
but back when I was using amps, I was always a fan of the Fender stuff.
Of the
And
what stuff?
the Fender amps, like
Oh, sure.
just
Yeah.
like a deluxe
Yeah.
reverb is hard to beat, but
Yeah. Yeah.
like I say, I'm
Definitely.
into the modern stuff now. I've got every sound and every amp and every effect I could possibly want right there in
Yeah.
this little box, and it sounds good enough for any of the CD bars that I'm likely to play in. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No. What a time to be alive. They've made that a lot easier for sure.
Oh, when it
It's
first came out, I was like, "Oh, this technology is wonderful. If they can ever make it sound good, we're
yeah.
going to be loving it." And they did. It
Yeah.
sounds pretty damn good now. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing.
yeah.
Um, if someone were to come to you and say, "Hey, I'm interested in starting building guitars," what would be some advice you'd give them? Where to start?
I'd say just to jump in and start.
Hmm.
Just buy maybe a couple of books.
Yep.
There's a few good books out there available nowadays to start you down the path. YouTube is a invaluable resource. Like these guys, this T-shirt here, Texas Toast Guitars. They run a guitar building school out in Denver, and
Okay.
that offer week-long classes that are a perfect way to dip your foot in, and all of their classes are set up to where you come away with a functioning, ready to go guitar. So
Cool.
something like that can be a good way to get into it, just to get an understanding of what you're getting into, I guess. But
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Absolutely.
just doing it, I'd say start with a kit, maybe.
Hmm. Yep.
Start.
Cool.
You can build a guitar with just a couple of tools. Like when I first started, I was the first couple of them I made. I cut the bodies out with a jigsaw, and did all of the shaping and everything completely by hand. Then I went out and bought a spindle sander to help
Hmm.
with sanding stuff a little bit, but that's pretty much all I was using. Like I was doing all of the joining of boards and everything with an old plane that I bought at a junk store and rebuilt, and so it was a lot more work, but I can do with the bandsaw thickness sander in 5 minutes what would take me 2 days that way.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you
No,
can
it's
do it.
awesome, man. You're building absolutely gorgeous pieces. I love them. I appreciate your time today. Where can people find you? Where can people check your stuff out?
I then go to my website rvaguitar.com,
Yep.
or I have an Instagram page which is Instagram RVA Guitars, and I recently removed myself from Facebook because it had become too much of a toxic cesspit to be involved in. But they keep reinstalling my page despite me telling them not to. So I think it's still up. So I'm somewhere on Facebook too, but I rarely
Yeah.
will ever go on there and look at it. So
Yeah. Cool. Well, I'll link those below in the show notes, and hopefully people will check out your stuff. I recommend you do. Like I said, they're gorgeous guitars. And Bryant, thanks so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
all right, Brian, thanks a lot. It was nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.